So here's a question for you. How does a faith that's 2,000 years old stay true to itself? Does it just keep growing and changing with the times? Or does it eventually need a total hard reboot? Well, today we're diving into one of the biggest debates in Christianity, this very idea of restorationism.
Let's start with an analogy you might got. Think about your favorite long-running TV series, right? Is it one giant, continuous story that evolves over decades but always keeps its core DNA? Or is it more like a modern reboot that says, you know what, let's ditch all those later seasons and get back to the magic of the original? That is the exact question we're looking at today. Is the Christian church a 2,000-year-long series, or has it been rebooted over and over again? To really get to the heart of this, we've got to understand a huge difference: the idea of reforming a church versus the desire to restore it. See, this isn't just about fixing a few problems. It's about tearing the whole building down to the studs and starting fresh. And it's all driven by this belief that the original blueprint got lost somewhere along the way. This whole idea is called Christian primitivism.
And that brings us right to our main event, Restorationism. The central idea here is that sometime after the original apostles died, the true church just disappeared. It was lost. This period is often called the Great Apostasy. The thinking is that the church got so tangled up in power, politics, and doctrines that weren't in the Bible that you couldn't just fix it, you had to rebuild it completely from scratch, using only the New Testament as your guide. This quote from Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, absolutely nails the restorationist mindset. It's not just a critique of this church or that church, it's a flat-out declaration that all of them, every single one, had it wrong. And when you believe that, you don't try to reform things, you have to restore them.
Now, an idea this powerful didn't just create one new church. Oh no, it sparked a whole family of different movements, especially during this time of intense religious fervor in the United States. So, let's take a look at this family tree, shall we?
You can trace the DNA of this idea all the way back to the 16th century Anabaptists. They were kind of the granddaddy of the movement, but it really exploded during what's called the Second Great Awakening in 19th century America. It was just the perfect storm of revival and questioning old authority. And out of that, in 1830, you get Mormonism. A few decades later, the Jehovah's Witnesses movement gets started. And you also have the Stone-Campbell Movement, which gives birth to groups like the Churches of Christ. All of them, in their own unique way, were trying to get back to what they believed was the original church.
So, what we're left with are two completely different, totally incompatible ways of looking at Christian history. On one side, you've got the restorationists, and on the other, you have the traditional view, which is probably best represented by the Catholic Church. It's a fundamental clash over what really happened over the last 2 millennia.
So let's break it down. The restorationist view sees history as having this catastrophic break, a great apostasy, a rupture where the real church just vanished off the face of the earth. But the Catholic view sees an unbroken continuity. They believe the church has existed as one single, visible institution all the way back to the apostles. So one side sees a broken chain, the other sees a seamless one.
That difference in history leads to a huge difference in authority. For most restorationists, authority is pretty straightforward. It's either the Bible and the Bible alone, or it's new revelations from modern prophets. But for Catholics, authority is kind of like a three-legged stool. It stands on Scripture, yes, but also on tradition with a capital T, and on the authority of the bishops, who they see as the direct successors to the apostles.
Okay, and the last big clash is about how they see change. For a lot of restorationists, any development, anything that makes the church more complex, like formal creeds or big rituals, is seen as a corruption, a step away from the simple original. The Catholic view, though, sees that development as totally natural. They compare it to a mustard seed growing into a massive tree. It's the same faith, they'd argue, just fully grown.
All right, so how does the other side argue against this whole idea of a great apostasy? This is where it gets really interesting. Let's walk through the main arguments from the Catholic perspective for why they're so sure that chain of history was never broken, using the Bible, history, and a bit of logic.
The case for continuity is usually built on 4 pillars, and we're going to unpack each one. It starts with a promise from Jesus himself, then moves into the history books, points out a pretty serious logical problem, and wraps up by highlighting what they see as a glaring contradiction.
The very first argument is all about a promise. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says, "On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it." Now, from their perspective, if the entire church was wiped out for centuries, that sounds an awful lot like the gates of Hades prevailed. It would mean Jesus' promise was broken. So for them, a great apostasy just isn't a biblical option.
The second argument is a historical one. And the claim here is that the super simple, primitive church that restorationists are trying to get back to, well, it might be a myth. They point to the earliest Christian writings. I'm talking from just a generation or two after the apostles, and these writings describe a church that already has bishops, that believes in the real presence in the Eucharist, and a bunch of other practices that look, well, a lot more traditional than the restorationist model.
Now, for the third point, which is a bit of a logical puzzle. Restorationists build their entire faith on the Bible. But here's the kicker. The official list of books in the New Testament, what we call the biblical canon, was formally decided by church councils back in the 4th century. And that is the exact same period that restorationists say the church was corrupt and apostate. So, you see the problem? How can you trust the book if you believe the people who put it together had lost their authority?
And the final argument zeroes in on what some people see as a major contradiction. The logic goes like this. If the true, simple gospel is so clear and easy to find in the Bible, then why do all these different restorationist movements come up with such wildly different answers? They all started with the same blueprint, but one group ends up with multiple gods, another with a Unitarian God, and another with the traditional Trinity. How does that happen?
So as we've seen, this is so much more than just an academic debate about history. It's a really fundamental disagreement about the very nature of truth and how it gets passed down through time.
Which really leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Is religious truth like some kind of lost city, a pristine destination we have to rediscover by digging through the ruins of history? Or is it more like a living path, one that you have to continuously follow from its source? Whether you see the church as a reboot or a long-running series, your answer to that question really changes everything.